YouTube. It's been a hot minute since I have sat down to film a video. The last video that I filmed for you, well, I did two. The first one was kind of my life update where I told you about my first semester in my classroom, transitioning from middle school to high school, from South Carolina to California. And then my other video was my favorite books from 2018, or some of them. Then I just vanished again. I thought we could do another life update. I could tell you how my second semester in the classroom went. I'm going to talk about the content that I covered, and then I'm going to kind of reflect on last school year and also quickly tell you what changes are coming for me for this coming school year. So I actually start back in about 11 days, and so yeah, things are moving quickly. So let's get into it. When I talked to you last, I was really reflecting on a cultural shift from being in coastal South Carolina to now being in Southern California, and then also a age difference that I was working through. So I had taught 6th graders in South Carolina, and then here in California I am teaching sophomores in high school. So there is kind of a big age difference there, and that took some adjusting too. Once we hit second semester, things were smoother, and I think that's the case with every school year. So by the time you get to your second semester with your students, if you teach a year-long course, things are just really smooth. You're in the groove by that point, and that was kind of the case. We had really good relationships built, which is something I spent a lot of time focusing on, and then content-wise, they kind of understood my process, my expectations, so we were just real smooth for the second semester. When I stopped teaching before winter break, we had just finished World War I, and my course was thematic, which I talked a little bit about in my other video. And I talked about how, you know, I used to teach chronological. When I got to this school, they kind of had already planned to teach thematically, and so I was like, all right, I guess that's what we're doing. Got on board with thematic teaching. I really committed to it because I had heard about thematic teaching, had an interest in it, but I'd never done it. So I was like, I'm gonna fully invest in this. And I didn't love it by the end. I think it was a mixture of the themes that had been selected for the course. It's hard to explain. I'm gonna try. The themes for the course just didn't feel thematic enough for me. So like the themes were Enlightenment, the Age of Revolution, imperialism and industrialization, a century of war, man's inhumanity, and then modern times. So it was almost chronological, but then there were a few things out of place to make it thematic. And that to me didn't feel like a true thematic course, but it also wasn't a true chronological course. And it also wasn't a combination of the two intentionally. It was presented as thematic. And so me and that structure just didn't vibe. I enjoyed the content. That's my passion. That's what my history degree is in. I love world history. I just wasn't vibing with the design of this course. Also, it just started pouring rain in the desert. This is the second day this week. The day before yesterday, we had an earthquake and a flood here. So weird weather, but if you hear that, it's the rain. So sorry about that. So I didn't vibe with the course, but I'm going to tell you how I finished up that year. When we came back from winter break, we were in that A Century of War unit, and we taught World War II. I started with the Treaty of Versailles mini-Q, then taught World War II, then we looked at the Cold War, and that was the end of that unit. After that, we went into Man's Inhumanity. So Man's Inhumanity started with the Armenian Genocide, and I'll try to link down below some resources that I used when possible. But with Man's Inhumanity, we started with the Armenian Genocide, and I used the Armenian Genocide Museum website. It's very beautifully done, and I had them use the story of the Armenian people to complete a one-pager, and they all turned out so good, and they got to pull so many details from that website. That activity I really enjoyed. I went to an Armenian Genocide training about a month ago, and I learned a lot there. So I'm going to be restructuring that slightly, but I still really enjoyed what we did. After the Armenian Genocide, we went into the Holocaust, And for the Holocaust, so I had a lot of knowledge about the Holocaust. Like, there's so many books right here that I had to read for Nazi Germany courses or Holocaust courses, but I never taught the Holocaust. And I am such a big believer that content knowledge is very important, but so is pedagogical knowledge. So you can have all of this knowledge, but if you don't know how to take that down to the level of your students and present that information to them and have them actually learn and engage with that, it's not going to do you any good. So I was really struggling with, how do I take all of these things that I know and all these sources I love and get it to them and make it relevant, meaningful, and useful. And so what I actually did is I went on 2 websites for teaching the Holocaust this year, and I will be doing this again. I absolutely loved everything I did. We used Facing History and Ourselves, the Holocaust and Human Behavior unit. I used some of that. So there are 23, I believe, lessons in there, and some of those last 2 to 4 class periods. So if you use just that, you'll be going for a long time, and you really don't need anything else. I didn't want to use all of that though, because I had another resource that I wanted. If you go onto my Instagram, one of my highlights is the Holocaust, and you can actually see in there what specific lessons that I used from Facing History. And then in addition to that, I also used the film kit One Survivor Remembers from Teaching Tolerance, and that was so useful. I'm always a little nervous about showing films in the classroom, especially at the high school level, because it's so easy for them to just want to check out and get on their screens, and they're inundated with screens, and they have such high expectations when something is on screen, because that's just a huge part of their life. Even YouTube now is such a huge production. It's not like this where you just sit down in front of the camera and talk. So I'm always a little hesitant to do it because I don't want to do things that are not meaningful and useful in my classroom. But I showed that film, One Survivor Remembers, about Gerda Weissman Klein, and so many of them absolutely loved it and were so engaged. I did have one student say, oh, they need to make a movie out of this, and I was like, no, we don't want them to make a movie out of this. We want it just like this, in this form that humanizes these people who experience this. And so we also use that. Now, the thing with the Facing History materials is that it does not start right at the Holocaust. So it starts with kind of theories of race. It talks about race science, the universe of obligation. It really digs into upstander, bystander, perpetrator, victim. Those terms are pushed all throughout that material. And so you actually start with those concepts. Then you move into life for Jews and the root of anti-Semitism long before the Holocaust, and then you go in to the Holocaust, which I really like. I don't like to just be like, all right, the Holocaust, and you jump right into what happens. We need to talk about, where did this even come from? What does this mean? How is this relevant to us today? And things like that. So I really appreciated that from Facing History, as well as Teaching Tolerance. With Teaching Tolerance, I did not use all of the film kit. I actually used film itself, and then I had students take notes. They weren't like fill in the blank notes or specific notes. It was just like, take notes about when you hear things related to X, Y, and Z, and then they could use those notes on a summative write-up assignment about what they saw. And then after the Holocaust, we also looked at Bosnia, Cambodia, Rwanda, and Darfur, and students did a bloom ball project in groups with that. Each student was assigned in the group one of the 4 genocides, and then they had to complete 3 panels on the bloom ball, and then when they were done, the whole group put their bloom ball together, and then they had to teach their group members about their genocide, and they had a graphic organizer that they filled out to go with that. So they got to do some research, they got to do some art stuff, they got to teach their classmates, they got their notes. It was just a really good activity. After we finished up Man's Inhumanity, we went into our modern units, where we looked at the fall of the Soviet Union and the transition to Russia today. We also looked at Venezuela because it was something that they were talking about and interested in, so we kind of made that connection to what we had also studied in the Cold War, and looking at, you know, were there any similarities and things like that. And then we talked about China, because the China's one-child policy mini-Q is so interesting. And for the end of the year, my students absolutely loved the mock trials and the fishbowl debates that we did. I tried to do one for every quarter, and so I decided to end the year with one of those, and it was so good. The China's one-child policy is a great one for doing a mock trial with. I'm going to try to film a video this year when I'm doing and planning a mock trial so I can share that with you, because those are always my students' favorite days. It does take a lot of work for them to get to the mock trial to have a good one, but when they do, it is so much fun. That kind of ended our year. We did have a final, and it was a group project where they had to split up the different tasks. So they had to create an Instagram account that showed one post for every unit we studied this year. They had to create an educational road trip using Google Maps, where they were pitching a trip to me for one topic we covered this school year. There was no limit on money or time or travel or any of that, so they got to go all over the world with that trip. They had to have at least 5 destinations and tell me how that was going to teach me about the topic they selected. And then they also had to create a video game for one topic that we studied. My Man's in Humanity unit was off limits for the video game portion of this project, but they could pick from any of the other units. And then they also got extra credit for creating a meme about something that we did this year. Overall, the year ended really great. I am restructuring my course for next year, so I am going to be teaching chronologically again, but in those chronological units, I'm going to focus on a core set of themes throughout the entire school year. So I am teaching chronologically, focusing on themes. So something new again, but something I think I'm going to enjoy and that the students are going to get so much more from. In addition to changing up my course, I'm also going to be teaching a different course this year. I'm going to be teaching AP Human Geography. So this is the first time this course is going to be offered at my school. I'm really excited. I'm going to be working with freshmen. I've never taught freshmen. So I've worked with 6th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade, whether it was student teaching or during my teaching in my own classroom, but never 7th or 9th grade. So this will be a new one for me. I'm excited to see how it goes, and I hope that I'm going to have a little more time to maybe share and document some of that with you this year. There's going to be a part 2 to this where I go into some things that I'm thinking about for next year and how I'm planning out my course, so check back for that. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so that in case I do find the time to come back around YouTube, you don't miss anything. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.